Revealed. Concierge's warning of a hidden danger leads to incredible exposé by Billionaire on financial collusion. Jenna's heart raced as she stepped beyond the velvet curtains into the grand foyer of the mansion. Cast in gold fixtures and marble floors, it felt like another world. A stark contrast to her modest home in the struggling suburb. Her catering supplies, neatly stacked in boxes, were just another job. It was just survival. But in that privileged space, her pride as a veteran suddenly felt diminished. People still whispered what they thought about female soldiers, and her chest tightened with a familiar blend of anxiety and resentment. She busied herself with her work, each clink of her tools echoing in the opulence around her. But as she organized the trays, hushed voices drifted through the air, creeping into her ears. The concierge, with her sharp voice like glass shards, was deep in conversation with a visitor shrouded in a dark coat. Jenna froze, the whispers painting a picture that sent chills down her spine. Talk of shady deals and threats against the small-town community she called home played against her conscience. She couldn't risk the safety of her kids. Not for this, yet the responsibility clawed at her. If not her, then who? Jenna thought of her children, of the lessons she desperately tried to instill in them. Integrity, courage, and the need to stand up for what's right. Those words echoed in her mind, igniting a fire in her belly, and sadness filled her eyes. If she turned a blind eye, what kind of lesson would that teach? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days turned into sleepless nights as Jenna wrestled with her thoughts. Each day brought new encounters with her neighbors' faces once filled with warmth, now weathered by suspicion. Hushed voices followed her at the grocery store, and she bore the weight of their mumbled judgments. The very people she sought to protect turned on her, labeling her a troublemaker, and the pressure felt unbearable. Her life became a high-wire act, balancing her catering business with a growing sense of duty. As the town hall meeting approached, Jenna understood she had to confront this shadow threatening their lives. With her notes quivering in her hand, a mix of dread and determination surged through her. But just as she stepped into the spotlight, a familiar face from her past emerged from the crowd, a fellow veteran, someone who shared her journey. Emotions swirled within her like stormy seas. She was torn between fear and the fiery hope that swift action could ignite. With the room on edge, Jenna felt her courage take flight. Would she have the strength to speak her truth, knowing full well that the fallout could destroy everything she held dear? The weight of the moment bore down on her, a sweet yet savage anticipation igniting hope in her heart. What would she choose to do next? Would bravery allow her to shield her family, or would it shatter the fragile existence they had built? Jenna steadied her breath, the air thick with expectation. Each face in the room morphed into a mirror reflecting her unease. Some were skeptical, others worried, and a few, like the familiar veteran, wore expressions of support. She could sense the tension vibrating through the hall, a collective breath held, teetering on the edge of revelation. "Let us get this over with," she whispered to herself, reminding her heart to keep steady. With shaking hands, she clutched the sheets and took a step closer to the microphone. Her thoughts raced back to her children, safe in their little world. If she didn't take action now, a veil of darkness could swallow them whole. The room fell silent as she began to speak. At first her voice wavered, but with each word, the resolve began to flow. Jenna spoke about the fears creeping into their town, the whispered schemes and looming threats. She shared stories of how even the most innocent encounters had turned heavy with suspicion, leaving families in distress. As her story unfolded, she could see glimmers of acknowledgement in the eyes of her neighbors. Hope flickered across their faces, mingling with concern. "We deserve to know the truth," she declared, infusing her words with urgency. "If we stay silent, we become complicit in our own demise." The room erupted in a mix of murmurs. Surprised expressions flickered back and forth, and Jenna's chest tightened. Was this the moment she coveted, or the prelude to her undoing? Then, as she glanced over the crowd, Jenna met the steady gaze of the fellow veteran, a man she had served alongside, a beacon of strength amidst the uncertainty. His presence imbued her with an unexpected calm, And she pressed on. I fought for this community just as I fought for my country, she continued, her voice growing stronger. We have to protect what we love. With that, a ripple of energy coursed through the crowd. They began to lean in, the gravity of her words holding them captive. Conversations sparked like dry kindling ignited by flames, and soon voices rose together. What do we need to do? Asked an older woman from the back. How do we fight? Her question lit a spark within Jenna. They needed a plan, a way to expose the danger that lay in wait, a collective force to challenge the shadows lurking in their midst. Ideas bounced around the room, and her heart soared. For the first time in days, she felt a sense of unity, the kind that only comes from standing shoulder to shoulder against adversity. Yet just as empowerment surged, a figure in the back shifted, the dark-coated visitor, the very person she feared would tear their community apart. Jenna's stomach twisted. Their eyes met, and she felt the heat of impending danger. What would they do next? Would they lead an attack on her words, or would they retreat into the shadows? She swallowed hard, her pulse quickening. This was it. The chorus of voices around her might be rallying to take a stand, but the threat was glaring and real. The mission had just shifted gears. Just as she thought they were coming together, Jenna realized this could spiral, pulling her deeper into the shadows she had sought to expose. The stakes were higher than she ever anticipated. Would they fight for the truth, or would fear silence them once again? Jenna's heart raced. She stood at the crossroads of courage and uncertainty. As the crowd grew restless, she knew one thing for certain. The battle had just begun, but how far would they all go to protect what truly mattered? The electricity in the room crackled, a tangible force that surged as Jenna faced the crowd. She could feel their weight shifting, the collective heartbeat rising in sync with her own. Glancing at the dark-coated visitor again, a chill raced down her spine. He was watching her, those deep-set eyes simmering with something that felt like a threat wrapped in calm. Listen, she said, amplifying her voice, determined to outmatch the tension. It all starts with knowledge. We can't let fear dictate our actions. There was a quiver in her throat, but she pushed through, grounding herself in the faces of her neighbors. A murmur rose, vibrating through the crowd, a mix of anxiety and anticipation. They were hungry for direction, for something to hold on to. An idea flashed through her mind, bright and clear. We form a community watch. We all look out for one another, share our concerns, report anything that feels off. Together we'll create a web of safety. At her suggestion, the atmosphere shifted. Nods began as hesitant whispers morphed into shouts of agreement. People began taking out their phones and writing down ideas. Yes, called a young man from the front. We split into teams door to door, talking to neighbors. We can gather intel. Jenna's heart swelled with hope. Exactly. We need to know our community. If we detect a problem, we alert each other. If we sense danger, we confront it together. But her resolve was met with a sharper edge from the back of the room. And what if this gets out of hand? What if we put ourselves at risk? It was the dark-coated visitor's voice, smooth and chilling. Anxiety rippled through the crowd. You've stirred something, Jenna. Think about the consequences. She held her breath. Uncertainty fluttered among her neighbors like a trapped bird. People glanced nervously at each other. Fear had slithered back into every corner of the gathering. Jenna knew they were teetering on the brink. Maybe, she said softly, allowing a moment of silence to swallow his words. But I believe we have a choice. Do we let fear control us, or do we fight back? The room hung on her words, the question echoing in the spaces between their breaths. Her gaze locked with her fellow veteraness once more. If anyone could mirror her conviction, it was him. He stood up, hands raised for attention. Jenna's right, he said firmly, the authority of his voice cutting through the tension like a knife. What is community if not a family? We protect each other, or we risk losing everything we hold dear. Suddenly the air shifted again. People began to rise, determination settling like fire in their eyes. We can do this. An older man shouted. Let us stand up for our town. Then, just when hope began to bloom anew, Jenna noticed the dark-coated figure moving toward the door. He paused, turning back to cast what felt like an omniscient glance over the energizing crowd. Be careful what you wish for, he whispered before slipping into the night. The moment hung heavy in the air, a warning unspoken but thick with meaning. Jenna's heart raced. embers of fear igniting again. We can handle this, she encouraged herself, though doubt crept into her thoughts. Would they truly be safe, or had they just stirred something far darker? As a mumbled mix of self-empowerment and fading dread grew in the room, the crowd began to organize. Jenna felt a wave of responsibility sweep over her. It was her fight now just as much as it was theirs. But lurking somewhere in the shadows, danger lurked. Would they rally together strong enough to weather the storm ahead? Or would fear find its way back in? With that question echoing in her mind, Jenna reached for her phone, fingers trembling. She had to call her sister, had to warn her. The stakes felt impossibly high now, higher than she dared to admit. And yet the path ahead was uncertain. They had stirred the pot. What could possibly happen next? Jenna took a deep breath, her fingers hovering over the screen of her phone. The recent uprising of emotions still buzzed like static in the air. Her heart raced as she remembered her sister, Rachel's last message. Stay safe. The words seemed to echo now, a haunting reminder of the danger that lurked in the shadows. She hit dial, putting the phone to her ear as she scanned the room. The crowd buzzed with energy, everyone sharing ideas and assigning roles in their new community watch. Yet Jenna could see that some wore expressions of doubt, their brows furrowed, hesitant to step into this new reality. A knot formed in her stomach. Come on, pick up, she muttered under her breath. Rachel's voicemail greeted her, smooth and untouched by worry. Hey, it's Rachel. Leave a message. Jenna sighed, frustration creeping in. Not the time for this. Rachel, it's me. Please call me back. We need to talk. She hung up, the silence seeping back into her heart. The community was ready to act, but was she? As the crowd settled into small groups, Jenna's gaze drifted back to the door, where the dark-coated stranger had vanished. He had left behind an unsettling chill, one that lingered like a shadow at the edge of her thoughts. Jenna! A voice called out. It was Tom, her fellow veteran. We're organizing shifts for the watch. Can you lead the late-night patrols? She blinked, startled back to the moment. Yeah, sure. I can do that. At the far end of the room, she noticed a few faces worn with worry, those who seemed unsure before. What about the kids? The schools? Came a woman's voice. What if they get targeted? A wave of concern rippled through. Jenna knew the history of fear that gripped their town. Years of trusting the welfare of their children to a world that had changed. Suddenly, the need for action felt urgent, as parental protectiveness swelled into the atmosphere. We can host meetings at the schools, let us ensure they know how to stay safe, Jenna said, her voice picking up momentum as she spoke. We can leverage our watch to contribute safe spaces for them. Agreement rippled through the group again, the weight of uncertainty momentarily lifting. Hope glimmered like a defiant star in the darkening sky. But as the night wore on, Jenna's energy began to wane, thoughts trailing between her responsibilities and the lurking sense of dread. She felt it like a weight on her chest, creeping back in as worries swirled. What if they were too late? What if, in their enthusiasm, they had made things worse? Those thoughts haunted her while the chaos outside continued. She pulled out her phone again, checking for messages, desperate for a sign that Rachel was safe. Nothing. Just then, the hall door swung open violently, and a gust of cold air swept in, bringing an immediate hush over the room. Jenna's pulse raced as she turned. A stranger stood panting in the doorway, his eyes wide and urgent. You need to listen. You have to know what's been happening right now. The crowd held its breath, and Jenna's throat felt tight with apprehension. This was it. Whatever he had to say could tip the scales between their newfound determination and the deepening darkness that lurked ominously close. What is it? She pressed, her voice shaking yet resolute. The stranger stepped forward, glancing nervously over his shoulder. They're coming. For you. A chill swept through Jenna. The revelations had just begun. Did they truly understand the consequences of their actions? With that unsettling thought, the air thickened again, suffocating her with questions. Would they be ready for what lay ahead? And who was really hunting them in the night? Silence enveloped the room as the stranger's words hung heavily in the air. Jenna's heart raced, thundering in her chest like a drum warning of a storm. Whispers flitted from person to person, a murmur of confusion and dread. What do you mean coming for us? Tom was the first to break the stillness. He stepped forward, a protective stance forming as his eyes narrowed on the newcomer. "Listen to me," the stranger exclaimed, glancing over his shoulder again, his face pale as if haunted. "There's no time. They've been watching you. The patrols, your meetings." He leaned closer, speaking in urgent whispers. "They're tracking every move you make." Questions swirled in Jenna's mind like a tempest. Who were they? The truth began to unravel inside her, fear creeping in alongside doubt. She couldn't shake the feeling that something far darker awaited them. "And who exactly is they?" Jenna demanded, trying to steady her voice. The stranger hesitated, his eyes darting around the room, gauging their reaction. "I can't say. Not here. But it's serious. You need to be on guard." The crowd shifted nervously, the collective fear palpable. Jenna felt the tension tightening like a noose around her. It was one thing to prepare for an unknown threat, but another entirely to have a specific warning, one that carried an edge of imminent danger. "Jenna," Tom said, pulling her closer. "We need to assess this. Can you trust him?" Trust. It was a word that felt slippery tonight. Jenna glanced at the stranger's face again. Desperation mixed with something darker, urgency maybe. In his eyes she thought she saw fragments of panic. But beneath it all, was there truth? "I don't know," she replied, her voice trembling. "But we can't ignore this." The group's unease deepened, murmurs rising again, uncertainty blossoming into chaos as people debated the stranger's warning. Jenna felt the temperature drop, a chill twisting deep in her gut. She needed a plan, a way to not only protect herself but everyone gathered here tonight. "Everyone!" she shouted, trying to draw attention. "If we're going to act, we need a clear strategy. Split into pairs, communicate every move. Find out what's going on." The room buzzed with murmurs of agreement as people began to pair up, glancing nervously back at the stranger who still loomed at the entrance, his gaze darting with worry. There was an energy in the air now, a mix of urgency and determination. She felt that same spark ignite in her. "I'll help coordinate the pairs," Jenna said, her voice calming as she took charge. They needed her strength, her leadership now more than ever. As the pairs began to disperse, Jenna found herself alongside Tom. "I'll take the west side, check in with the neighbors. Use the walkie-talkies," she suggested, her mind racing. "We'll meet back at midnight. Be careful, Jenna. I don't want to lose you," he warned. The worry in his eyes pierced her, but she nodded, needing to reassure him that as she moved toward the exit, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Each shadow felt alive, and the very air felt charged with looming threats. Could they really prepare for whatever was out there? The sense of responsibility weighed heavy on her shoulders. Jenna took one last look back at the stranger, whose face now mirrored the fear she felt. Was he a beacon of warning or a harbinger of doom? With determination surging within her, Jenna pushed through the doorway, searching for clarity in the chaos. Would their newfound resolve be enough to keep the darkness at bay? Rushing into the darkened streets, a sudden realization struck her. What if the shadows were not just watching but waiting? What would happen if they failed to act swiftly and confidently? Tonight it was not only about survival, it was about confronting the unseen. And as the wind howled through the empty streets, Jenna knew the battle ahead was not just for safety. It was a fight for their very souls. The night was colder than Jenna had anticipated, her breath escaping in ghostly puffs into the starless sky. The streets were eerily quiet, a thick blanket of uncertainty settling over her. Each step felt heavier, each shadow casting doubts into her mind. She could feel the weight of every pair of eyes on her, or at least that's how it felt. Tom's voice lingered in her thoughts. "Be careful." She pressed on, each heartbeat echoing with a mix of fear and determination. The west side was a maze of tight alleys and dark doorways, places where danger could easily hide. As she rounded a corner, the glow of a street lamp flickered like a dying ember. She stopped, scanning the area for any sign of movement. Nothing. Just silence. But in that heavy stillness, she felt a prickle at the back of her neck, the sense that she wasn't alone. Jenna quickened her pace, her heart thumping louder. The houses stood like soldiers on alert, their windows dark and lifeless. Yet something deep inside her felt the urge to keep moving. The instinct was strong. This was not just a night like any other. Suddenly, she noticed a flicker of light through a window on the second floor of a nearby building. Curiosity nagged at her. It could be a neighbor. Perhaps they were gathering information without her knowing. Jenna approached cautiously, pressing her back against the wall, peering through the dirt-streaked glass. The scene revealed a small room cluttered with old furniture. A man sat at a desk scribbling notes fervently, his brow furrowed as if he were untangling a complex puzzle. She could barely make out the words he wrote, but the urgency was palpable. He paused, glancing over his shoulder as if sensing her presence, causing Jenna to stiffen. What was he writing? Was he connected to the warning? Deciding against drawing attention, Jenna slipped away from the window, breath held tight in her chest. She needed information, but the mystery deepened. Turning down another alley, she recalled the stranger's warning. This wasn't just about her anymore. The entire group was at risk. Just then her walkie-talkie crackled, sending an electric jolt through her. "Jenna? Are you there?" It was Sarah's voice, shaky but clear. "Tom mentioned you were heading out. We need to know what's happening. Things are getting weird around here." "Weird?" Jenna whispered back, trying to keep her voice steady. "What's going on?" "There are reports of strange patrols, people gathering on the outskirts of town. They're organizing, Jenna. Feels like something big is coming." A chill ran down Jenna's spine. "We need to regroup. I'll head back soon. Stay alert, okay? Don't open the door to anyone unless it's me or Tom." "Got it. You're not alone, right? Promise me." "I promise," she reassured, her voice firmer than she felt. As she ended the call, she took a deep breath, trying to center herself. She had to focus. They needed to piece together what was happening. Determined, she turned back towards their meeting place. But as she stepped onto the main street again, a shadow darted across her path. Her heart raced as she instinctively crouched low behind a parked car. The figure was tall, cloaked in darkness, moving swiftly yet silently. Jenna had to know who it was. Mustering her courage, she peered out, heart thudding in her ears. "Who's there?" she whispered into the night. The figure paused, a second stretching into eternity. Just as she felt the urge to bolt, they turned, their face illuminated by the dim street light. It was the stranger from earlier. "Get back," he hissed, eyes wide with panic. "They're coming." Jenna's breath hitched. What now? Could she trust him again? Or was he leading her into a trap? The answer hung in the air, thick with tension, like an unspoken promise of danger. "Follow me if you want to survive," he urged, extending a hand toward her. What she didn't expect was to find herself thrust into the truth behind the shadows lurking in the night. Jenna hesitated, caught between instinct and desperation. The stranger's urgency seeped into her, his fear palpable in the chilly air. She looked into his eyes, searching for a hint of motivation that would explain his reckless behavior. Did she have any other choice? "Who are you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "No time for questions," he snapped, glancing back over his shoulder. "They're getting closer. Trust me. Just come with me." Before she could reply, he turned and sprinted down the alley. With her heart racing and adrenaline surging, Jenna followed. Each step felt like a decision to leap into darkness, but something deeper urged her on. They darted through narrow passages, the echo of their footsteps blending with the night air. Shadows flickered against the brick walls, dancing with every rustle and creak. The stranger led her to a door tucked away at the end of a dimly lit corridor. Without hesitation, he pushed it open and ushered her inside. Here, the room was cramped but dimly lit by a single bulb hanging from the ceiling. Papers cluttered the surfaces. A small desk piled high with files caught her eye. "We need to lay low for a moment." Jenna took a deep breath, scanning their surroundings. "What is happening out there? Who are you?" "I'm just a guy trying to figure things out like you," he replied, pacing the small room. "But these people, they're organized. They're watching everyone." Watching? A sense of dread washed over Jenna. What did he know that he wasn't telling her? "Who?" "I can't explain it all now," he rasped, locking the door and securing a heavy bolt. "But I saw them. They were checking homes. The gathering on the outskirts is part of something larger." "Larger?" she echoed, her pulse quickening. "Like what?" He finally looked her in the eye, the intensity of his gaze piercing through her defenses. "Like a revolution. They want control, Jenna. It's not just about fear and darkness. They have plans and we can't let them succeed." The implication churned in her stomach, raising the hairs on her arms. She opened her mouth to speak, but he cut her off. Listen, we don't have long. We need to move, but first you have to promise me something. If I say run, you run. No questions. Do you understand? I do, she replied, uncertainty wrapping around her like a blanket. But something in his voice hinted at truth. Good. I have a plan, he said, his face lighting up for a moment. But we need to gather more information. The people in that house, he pointed to the papers scattered around, they might have keys to what's happening. They're like you, tangled in it all. Jenna forced herself to nod. She felt a surge of determination swell within her, alongside her fears. Then let us do it. But before they could formulate a plan, distant shouts reached their ears, echoing through the stillness. Footsteps grew louder, reverberating off the nearby walls. They're here, he whispered urgently, panic creeping back into his voice. What do we do? She felt her heart race again. Was it too late to turn back? The door shook against its frame, heavy hands pounding, demanding entry. We have to go. Now. As they prepared to bolt out the back, Jenna turned back one last time to look at the papers scattered across the desk. The strange connection pulled at her. Was this the key to unraveling the mystery? Could they really stop what was coming? Her thoughts spiraled, but the urgency of their situation forced her to follow the stranger. They slipped out the back as the door burst open, the night swallowing them whole. What lay ahead was still shrouded in shadows, but she could feel the weight of the truth pressing against her. She had a choice to make, and the gravity of it could change everything. Would she dare to uncover the secrets waiting in the dark, or would she run from the shadows altogether? Jenna stumbled into the alley, the dampness of the night air hitting her like a wave. She turned to the stranger, but his focus was ahead, urgency fueling his every movement. Adrenaline coursed through her veins, mingling with a sense of sheer disbelief. What are we running from? She gasped, the words tumbling out before she could think them through. The stranger didn't pause. Does it matter? We'll find out later. Right now, just keep moving. They darted around a corner and squeezed through a rusted gate into a small courtyard. Green ivy crept along the walls, offering a semblance of normalcy, but nothing felt safe anymore. Jenna's thoughts flickered back to the papers, each one whispering secrets she longed to hear. Why are you helping me? She pressed, her breath heavy. He finally turned to her, the moonlight catching on the sweat glistening on his brow. Because you're not like the rest of them. You're curious. You want more than just a routine life, he said, a hint of a smile breaking through his tension. What do you mean the rest of them? She could barely keep up with the pace his legs set, but the conversation ignited something inside her, a spark of rebellion against the mundanity she had felt for too long. You'll see, he replied cryptically, shifting their path as they approached a wooden gate. He glanced back, scanning the shadows as if they might spring to life. Here, follow me. He slid the gate open, leading her into a narrow street lined with old brick buildings. Jenna's heart raced not only from running, but from the anticipation of what lay ahead. Each breath felt heavier, charged with what they were walking into. Look, we need a plan, Jenna insisted, her mind racing. You mentioned gathering information. So what do we do next? He paused, reflecting for a moment, then pointed toward a small window glowing with light on the floor above. That's south the place. It's a safe house of sorts. We can gather intel there, see what they're really up to. A safe house? Jenna echoed. But what's stopping them from finding us? It's a risk. But the longer we wait, the deeper we get pulled in. We need to catch up to those papers before they fall into enemy hands. His gaze burned fiercely, determination like a fire igniting his soul. They started up the creaky stairs leading to the door. With every step, Jenna wondered if she was making a mistake, but uncertainty had to give way to bravado. What lay on the other side of that door could bring clarity, and for the first time, she felt a flicker of hope. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit room filled with an assortment of people. Some were frantically analyzing stacks of papers, others piecing together chaotic notes on a whiteboard, their faces lined with stress and fatigue. Who are these people? Jenna whispered, uncertainty creeping back in. Those are the fighters, he replied. They're all in the same boat. We are too. We must do our part, or we won't stand a chance against what's coming. As the strangers glanced up at them, Jenna felt a wave of unease wash over her. Were they truly allies? Or were they just another part of the chaos? Before she could dwell on it, the atmosphere in the room shifted. Someone at the back shouted, urgency rising in their voice. They've breached the perimeter. Panic rippled through the room, and in that instant, she realized they were out of time. Jenna grabbed the stranger's arm, feeling a mix of fear and excitement. Now what? She asked, her voice taut with tension. Now we listen, he said, determination flooding his tone. And we fight if we have to. As the sound of their pursuers echoed in the distance, Jenna knew they were facing a crucial moment. The choices ahead were daunting, and the stakes climbed higher by the second. Would she find the strength to confront the unknown? Or would she be swept away by the tide of chaos closing in? The room erupted into frantic movement. Jenna felt a surge of panic wash over her, battling against the growing light of determination flickering inside her. She turned to the stranger, momentarily shaking off her fear. What do you want me to do? She asked, gripping his arm tighter. Stay close, he instructed, his eyes scanning the room. He moved swiftly toward the group huddled around a flickering screen, a chaotic mix of urgency and focus plastered across their faces. Jenna followed, her nerves tingling as she picked up snippets of their conversations, each more urgent than the last. We haven't confirmed their shift patterns, a woman hissed, forehead creased in concentration. If we don't act now, it will be too late. Shua, the stranger urged, his voice barely above a whisper. They need to know what's coming. As they converged into the center of the commotion, Jenna took a deep breath, the air heavy with anxiety. The stranger elbowed his way to the front, drawing the group's attention. Listen up. He called out, urgency lacing his tone. The room quieted, eyes narrowing at them. We just escaped a close call. Their forces are onto us. We need to reorganize and regroup. Questions fired off like rapid gunfire. Jenna recognized the looks of judgment, shadows of doubt lurking behind eyes that had wrestled with fear too long. But there was something electric in the atmosphere, a raw need for connection, the refusal to crumble. Who are you? And why should we trust you? A man stepped forward, crossing his arms defiantly. Because we're all in the same fight, the stranger replied, his voice steady. This girl, she asked the key. Those papers we've been chasing, they were meant to expose them for the fraud they are. If we don't stop them now, the truth will be buried forever. Jenna felt herself stiffen, a flurry of emotions battling within her. She wasn't anything special, just another face blended into the crowd. But this moment felt significant, as if destiny had carved out a space for her amidst the chaos. How do we know she's not one of them? Another voice rose, casting doubt like a specter shrouded in mistrust. Because she wants more than a mundane life, the stranger shot back, catching Jenna's eye. And that's what they fear most. The group exchanged glances, the air thick with hesitation. Jenna opened her lips to speak, but her voice caught in her throat. What could she say that would convince them? That she was scared? That she barely understood what was happening? Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed outside. A chill raced down Jenna's spine. They were here. Everyone get ready. The woman from earlier shouted, motioning toward the back door. We need a distraction. We can't let them in. Jenna's heart pounded in her ears as she watched the chaos unfold. There was no way to foresee how this would end, but there wasn't time to back out. Her pulse raced in rhythm with the collective heartbeat of the group. Jenna, we need you to stay focused. The stranger urged, pulling her closer. Trust your instincts. When it's time to make a move, follow me and don't look back. The urgency snapped her back to reality. They were about to face challenges tougher than she could ever have imagined. With every fiber of her being, she wanted to prove that she belonged here, that she could be brave. As the door rattled ominously, Jenna stepped forward. Let us fight, she declared, her voice igniting the room with a wave of resolve. But as the door splintered from the impact of their pursuers, Jenna wondered if this was truly the moment she was meant to rise or merely a fleeting chance that would slip away forever. In that instant, she knew she was at a crossroads, and her choice would either bind them together or tear them apart. Would she step into the light, or would the darkness consume them all? The door splintered under the relentless pounding, echoing chaos into the basement where Jenna stood with the strange group she had aligned herself with. The urgency in the air grew heavier, tinged with the scent of fear and courage intertwining. When the door finally gave way, a burst of wood and splintered nails, their pursuers flooded in. Cloaked figures moving with intent, eyes like storms ready to unleash destruction. Now, the stranger barked, instantly taking charge. Jenna felt the adrenaline pulsating through her veins, a mix of terror and determination locking her feet in place. Move! We regroup. They surged towards the back exit, a plan forming in their minds, an idea ignited by shared fear. The strange yet magnetic stranger led the charge, guiding them down twisting corridors towards safety. Jenna felt a swift camaraderie with these people who had become allies overnight, warriors standing shoulder to shoulder against the darkness. She could not back down, not now, not ever. As they tumbled into the backyard, the night air struck her like a refreshing breeze, awakening senses dulled by fear. They moved quickly, dodging the silhouettes of the cloaked figures that scoured the streets. The soft warmth of adrenaline coursed through Jenna, providing a confidence she had long lost. Together they were a thread stitched tight, weaving through the chaos with tenacity. Over here, the stranger called, pushing her toward an alley that felt both familiar and unknown. The urgency emphasized their unity, shaping them into a fabric of resilient determination. Jenna pressed forward, heart racing. What now? She gasped, glancing back as her breaths came in frantic bursts. Same plan, stronger resolve. He shouted, reassuringly strong despite the chaos. They can't control their fear. We can use it to our advantage. The air buzzed with electric tension, igniting an uncanny awareness in her. They could not just play it safe, they were at war. But as they continued through the darkened alley, Jenna thought of her neighbors, the community she had fought so hard to protect. What about them? As if reading her thoughts, the stranger halted suddenly, a fierce look in his eyes. We need to alert them. Gather more numbers. Use the people's worry to fuel our resolve. If they believe they can stand against the shadows, they will. Jenna felt sparks fly in her chest. He was right. These weren't just her battles. They were the collective fight of their town. Drawing strength from those they relied on could be their biggest weapon. She looked around at the determined faces of her newfound allies. Let us start there, she shouted, her voice rising like the dawn breaking over a shadowy night. They moved swiftly, zigzagging past the lurking danger to reach the heart of their community, the park that had always symbolized love and unity. As they gathered there, their breaths mingled with urgency, fire igniting in every heart present. Everyone, she called out, her voice trembling but fierce. This isn't just about us anymore. They want to silence us, to bring our fight to its knees. But fear is not stronger than our unity. Faces lit with a shared understanding. Fists clenched, she could see courage sparking in their eyes. From the depths of the crowd, an older woman stepped forward, voice steady with conviction. We've always leaned on each other in tough times. We'll protect our homes. We'll protect our children. Cheers erupted, the communal spirit inflating, rising against fear and uncertainty. They were together, and together they would stand tall, a force of resilience against the encroaching shadows. They needed to be a watchful presence, amplifying safety and community, unyielding against the collateral damage looming by their layers of connection and courage. But just as hope surged forward, a sudden flicker of danger pierced the air. From the edge of the park, dark figures emerged, their eyes gleaming with malicious intent. The earlier fears washed over her like a cold wave. This was it, the moment they had all prepared for. As the shadows began to close in, the stranger stepped beside her, a fierce determination in his gaze. Jenna, we fight like we've never fought before. With a deep breath filling her lungs, Jenna raised her voice above the fray. Together. For everything we hold dear. The gathering resonated with energy as they came together, face to face with their challenges, ready to confront the darkness lurking just beyond their reach. And that moment, Jenna felt transformed. This was their battle. Their moment to take back control, not just for themselves but for everyone who depended on their bravery. The community surged as one, ignited by a fervor that would never be extinguished. Hope permeated the air, casting aside the remnants of fear like debris after a storm. With arms linked and hearts bold, they surged forward to face whatever lay ahead, knowing they were stronger together. This was not the end. This was just the beginning of a journey that would light their way through the deepest shadows. They would defy the dark and emerge victorious, hand in hand, ready to reclaim their community and their futures. Now, as their resolve solidified into an unbreakable bond, Jenna took a moment to breathe in their collective strength. The world ahead would be tough, but together they were poised to embrace the fight. Don't just sit there. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to stay connected with exclusive stories like this. Hit that like button now, feed the algorithm and help others discover their strength. Comment below your thoughts on this newfound bravery. And don't wait not even one more second. Share this powerful message with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible transformation. Join the movement. Let us face the shadows together.